Hello, everyone, and welcome to twitch.tv/ the Onyx Path, where today we have gathered for another installment of the Storypath Nexus writing sessions for Trinity Continuum Aeon. Today we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into Assault on Nemesis Station, our sort of work in progress. I've got a couple of cats loose in my office, so if they start to misbehave, my deepest apologies. They're just being kitties. So, before we dive too far into the creation, I would like to remind you that we are currently running a Kickstarter for Titans Rising and Titanomachy. The Kickstarter will bring both of those books into traditional print and distribution at your friendly local game store. You can head over there right now and check it out. We are looks like we're about $500-$600 shy of our next stretch goal over there. So it's fully funded. Things are moving along nicely. But if you've not yet checked it out, I would highly recommend you do so. And if you've already supported it, please consider sharing the link on all of your social media, get your friends involved, help us push that even further into stretch goals. Lots of cool things. It's 2 books for 1 Kickstarter. Definitely check it out, and the link is there in the chat. Other than that, I don't think I have too much particularly to promote today. We had a couple of new releases on Wednesday. I'm just checking to see exactly what those are because I have had a slight week of discombobulation, just been busy. Yes, that's right. Legacies of Earth for Legend Lore is out, as well as Roll20 tokens for Scarred Lands Creature Collection, and they came from Camp Murder Lake. So lots of cool stuff there, and I'm going to go ahead and throw the link to that release announcement in the chat as well. Good morning, Chandra and Blink, or afternoon, evening, whatever it is where you're at. I appreciate you being here. So I think that covers all of our to-do lists. And I do want to remind everybody as well that there is Onyx Path Game Night is at the last Friday of every month. This month is the 29th. It's focused on Scion, but games of any kind are appreciated as long as they're Onyx Path games. You can find information about that over at Start Playing Games, and I actually have set up a couple of adventures myself for this coming weekend. We're going to be doing Scion, A Night at the Club one shot. That's going to be on that Friday at 2 p.m. Central, so 3 p.m. Eastern. However that falls into your time zones. Thanks for the lurk, Butterfly. I appreciate it. So once again, my inability to type and talk at the same time has vexed me. So yeah, if you're interested in playing Scion with me on Friday the 29th, I've got that set up there at Start Playing Games. There's some seats left in that, obviously, and then we have also that Saturday. I will be running Party Beach Creature Feature at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you would like to check that out, we'll throw the link to that in the chat as well. Also, you can run your own games during game night, and you can either charge or run them for free. It's up to you. We do everything through Start Playing Games, so you have a chance to earn some money running games if you like. And we coordinate usually that gameplay through our Discord channel. So let me put the link up for Party Beach if anyone's interested in joining that. And then if you check out our Discord, we have looking for group channels, chats for games that we use during game night, all those fun things there. Okay, so now back to the reason for our gathering today. We're working on Assault on Nemesis Station. This is a release that will go out on the Storypath Nexus. If you're unfamiliar with the Storypath Nexus, it's a community content program that allows you to create material for various Storypath settings and sell it at DriveThruRPG. I'm going to throw the FAQ in the chat, or rather the community guidelines, and the FAQ you can get to from there. But this covers the basic guidelines of what is and is not allowable at the Storypath Nexus. It's pretty permissive. Basically, anything for Trinity Continuum that has been published and released fully to the public is unlocked. So, your Trinity Continuum Assassins, which is considered to be part of Core, the Core book, and Aberrant are all unlocked. Adventure will unlock at some point once the final traditional print release has gone out, and so on and so forth for Anima and the various other forthcoming releases. Sorry, my cat is being extra loud and misbehaving. How's it going, Daskind? So yeah, now that we've got all that covered, if you have any questions about the Storypath Nexus, feel free to ask them in the chat. And yeah, we will dive into our creation stuff. But bear with me for just one moment because I think I'm going to need to get this cat out of this room. So just give me a hot second. False alarm. I think he's going to start behaving himself, maybe. We'll see. If not, you'll hear some more scratching in the background. Makes for a fun soundtrack. All right. So, Assault on Nemesis Station. This is an adventure that we're building for Trinity Continuum Aeon. It is set in the asteroid belt on an asteroid called Nemesis. It is run by the ICE consortium. It's a international consortium of interstellar consortium of eco mining, and they are introduced in the supplement mission statements. If you're not familiar with that, I highly recommend picking it up. There's a lot of fun stuff in there. Well, I should say they're detailed in mission statements. I believe they're mentioned in the core book, but yeah, this is a company that basically is a meta corporation. They're spread throughout settled space, and they make their money in eco mining. Originally, their primary interest was in water and ice mining to make sure that settled space had water, but they have expanded to mining all sorts of precious materials. Yeah, thank you for the clarification, Chandra. Yeah, they're mentioned, I think, in core, and then they're expanded on in mission statements quite a bit. And we're drawing mainly from the mission statements information while we're crafting this adventure. So, idea being that Nemesis Station is a ICE, an ice holding. It's what they call a micronation. The consortium sets up various micronations on stellar bodies that they're mining. So on asteroids, if they set up a place like a mining operation, say in a nebula, they would set up a micronation for that outpost as well. It gives them some legal wiggle room when dealing with other entities, and the ability to sort of be a nation when they need to be and not be a nation. They can lean back on being a corporation when they need to for sort of the best optimal, I guess, situations for them when they're dealing with other entities. So we had briefly gone over before kind of our basic sort of breakdown of what the scenes were, and today I want to get into the meat of some of those. I had hoped to get a little bit more of this done off camera this week, but it's just been a very, very busy week, so my apologies for that. We'll just work through it as we will. But before we dive into this, I do want to bring up some of the things that I did get to this week. between sessions, just to keep you fully up to date on the progress. So I've gone through and made sure that all the stat blocks are updated. Added some art where it was missing. We did not have our divergent art previously. This art is drawn from the art packs that are available at the Storypath Nexus. One of the things that Onyx Path offers to help get community content creators kind of off, off the ground are free art packs that can be used. So this Divergent Aberrant is from those art packs. If you can see that on the screen, sorry, I realize I don't quite have everything. You don't quite have the field of view that I do, so I apologize there. Yeah, that's art pack art. I went through and did a little bit of clarification in the Terrat level threats write up, particularly clarifying around the stress note that we have in here, and giving us a little bit more room so that as we expand on the motivations and the backstory, we'll have a little bit of room there. So there'll be a nice one full page, single page breakdown, everything you need right there for our big bad, as it were. Then coming down here, I picked out some art for our freighter pilot. I also, and all the art, I think, throughout the rest of this section is from the art packs. But another thing that I did as I was picking out this art was I noted that they're on a asteroid and they're doing asteroid mining, and none of them had any sort of environmental equipment, which would, I would assume, make for a very, very short visit in space. So I have gone through and added to all of the human story guide characters, I've added some vacuum environment suits as detailed in the Aeon core book. I also, for the security forces, went ahead and added an armored vacuum environment suit because, they're security. They should have a little bit of extra oomph to their suits. So traits wise, I'm pretty sure our antagonists and SGCs are where they need to be. There's a little bit of cleanup that I need to do, such as making sure all the page notations are together, but that is boring work I can do not on stream. So, having a minor setback, but I like it. So having dived into all that, dove into all that. Let's get into our scene breakdown. So we want to make sure when we're making adventures for community content that we don't succumb to scope creep. It's very easy to come up with like one idea and then build 30 other things on it that you think are cool. I would caution you against doing that. Maybe even have like a separate note document up. If you're working in InDesign like I am, have a Word doc open as well, or just have like a notepad document up so that if you get these cool ideas that can build off of kind of the core crux of what you're doing, you note them down so you don't lose them, but you don't cloud up your document too much with side things. It's very cool, I think, to be able to release multiple items that sort of tie together. I've done that with some of my previous releases. The Leviathan Mabuhay and then Skirmish Against Lagi are basically connected. You can use the two in tandem. You can use them separately, but they definitely work. They gel well together. So that's one thing you can do is to sort of fight off scope creep is build a secondary project off of the notes that you developed during the first one. But in order to keep things succinct, we are breaking this down into 5 scenes. We want to make sure that we cover each area of action, which we have done in our bullet point notes as we passed through beforehand. So now it's really about hanging the flesh on these bones. As I have mentioned, I'm sure in the past, and will mention every time I'm streaming one of these things, I don't talk and type well at the same time. So I might be especially quiet today as we are working through some of this stuff, but I am, as always, interested in questions, feedback, ideas that you might have, and just any general discussion. I will try to keep at least one eye over on the chat as much as I can. So, getting into all of that, let's look at what we've got here. We've got our first scene is getting the characters to Nemesis Station. The default assumption is going to be that they come from elsewhere. So we will probably want to, first thing that pops to mind immediately is, because I have listed a default assumption, I want to also pop in a sidebar. And this will cover, like, what if the characters actually start at Nemesis Station? Say you want to do something where you're, rather than they show up and the shit has already hit the fan. Say you want to do something where they're there when the initial attack takes place. I think we can cover that in basically a sidebar. I don't think we need to run through that. That's not the mission of what we're trying to do. That's not the story we're trying to tell here. But I think we can discuss how those tools can be, how the tools in this book can be achieved to reach that goal, if that makes sense. So let's flush out these sort of beats, these bullet points that we have already. So assuming that they're going to be an Aeon team that is there for a technical inspection, we need to build a little bit of a backstory onto that. And I think we'll say ICE operations are subject to that the ICE operations are subject to Aeon's tech oversight. In the world of Aeon, the Aeon Trinity has kind of I guess you could say, an authority over the technology that is developed and what gets sold and what gets used and what is kind of effectively considered illegal. And right now I'm just kind of looking through the actual allegiance in the core book to see exactly how they phrased that that power, and exactly if it mentions specifically which divisions handle that. Yeah, Anne is in the Anne Trinity is holds a lot of authority, though some of that authority is indirect due to their advisory seat on the UN Security Council, if I'm not mistaken. But they also have a fair bit of, I guess you could say, yeah, authority or jurisdiction outside of that specific role. just again kind of looking through and seeing what sections handle which. The fun stuff, right? Because, like, for example, there are certain the Aeon Trinity is broken down into an organization of interlocking operations, basically, things that are occurring either within a certain section or involving multiple sections within the larger scope of the Aeon Trinity. So, for example, you'll have Proteus Division, Section Minerva. Section Minerva is a sort of clandestine black ops series of operatives that answer directly to the Aeon Council and kind of can do whatever they need to do in order to get their job done, as it were. However, other sections are largely unaware of their existence. They may have an assignment that lists them as part of another section, for example. So I'm just kind of looking through like which operations have the most jurisdiction for the kind of technology that you'd be seeing used in a mining facility. Another notable operation is Operation Rewrite, which is completed as of the start date of Anne, but there were two main purposes, basically to recover historical, cultural, scientific data after the AppNet crash, and then to sort of edit history, as it were, with regards to quantum technology. Really trying to keep the technologies that were introduced and proliferated by the aberrants kind of out of people's hands. So again, I'm just kind of flipping through here to see kind of what we're at with various different operations and who might be the best to look and see what is who might be involved. One thing that might actually be kind of cool now that I'm looking at it, rather than it being like a tech inspection per se, maybe we go with something where like it's an Operation Utopia. Operation Utopia is sort of the intellectual descendant of Project Utopia from the Aberrant Age. And they basically work to try to direct power in a healthy and responsible manner. So in the 22nd century, they're social scientists, futurists, consultants, and they work with influential politicians, prominent scions, wealthy metacorps to guide humanity into a future in line with the core tenets of the Trinity. So we can put Operation Utopia as a possibility. Let's see. Just want to make sure I'm covering all my bases here. So, we've got the option for and team for tech inspection. Utopia could be one avenue into that. Just looking to see kind of what other options we have. Again, sorry that today's episode's a little bit less, a little bit slower pace. I need to figure out some of these things, which is again why creating isn't necessarily always entertaining. Sometimes it's just a lot of research, a little bit of control F being your friend. It is. It is very much part of the process. I wish that I just sat down and awesome fell out of my fingers and it turned into a book, but unfortunately, there's some work to it. Um, and if anyone figures out a way around that, let me know. Um, but as near as I can tell, there's just really no way around it. Um, I'm just kind of digging around for other references to the Trinity's technology oversight and how that works. And we're also going to break down kind of what the other side orders might have for interests in the area. But I want to get Anne off the table first. See, Argus, Project Argus is another part of Triton Division that handles kind of the more industrial espionage type things. But I don't know that that's necessarily kind of what we're looking for. Um, yes, realistic expectations are unmutual. It's true. Let's see. Hmm. And I'm just trying to see if there's like a. There doesn't seem to be an easily concealed or easily congealed sort of um, tech enforcement wing. Looks like it sort of falls into different branches. Because like Project Ceto deals with aberrance and the danger of corruption, but doesn't specifically talk about technology. Thanks so much for being here, Disky. I really appreciate it, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. But yeah, definitely come back. We are doing this every week, at least until this book is done. Then I'll probably be grabbing a different community content program and working with that. Um, so definitely follow if you've not yet done so. Consider subscribing, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Have a great rest of your day. Hmm. Okay, you know what might actually be cool if we're aside from just doing like a straight investigation, like oversight. I mean, we could do oversight with Utopia, or Operation Vesta, which is kind of a operation within the Trinity as part of again an interagency initiative to try to rebuild things that were damaged in the Aberrant War, but also bring civilization back to areas that lost it during the Exodus. So when the extrasolar colonies were cut off for a couple of years, the society somewhat degraded in some of those areas. So Operation Vesta would have an interest in going in there and helping to restore order, helping to restore civilization and whatnot. So I think they would be kind of a cool possible lens through which the Aeon Trinity could be involved here, right? So we'll say that Utopia agents are sent to perform basic routine compliance checks to ensure Nemesis Station is operating within legal parameters. Right. So if the group is Utopia based, they're basically just popping in to make sure everything's on the up and up. Kind of a basic safety inspection like you might expect like OSHA to perform, perhaps. Um, that kind of a deal. Um, whereas Operation Vesta, we'll say that those agents are more interested in shoring up relations between Ice and Anne. Maybe they're even there. Maybe they're there to increase production of water for where do we want to tie it extrasolar colony wise? Karoo is always a favorite of mine because it's um, like this rickety out in the middle of nowhere uh, mining colony that is kind of fighting a battle on two fronts and is super cut off and super paranoid. So they often to me seem like a place that is in need. So I'll say yeah. The Vest agents are more interested in shoring up relations between Ice and Anne in the hopes of increasing production of water for the Karoo mining colony to export to the Karoo mining colony. So these are going to be the Aeon teams would be ultimately going in on a bureaucratic mission, which means that you're likely to have more characters who have a bureaucratic background, which isn't going to do them a whole lot of good fighting aberrants, which I think is great. Awesome. Fish out of water. I love it. It's cool. There may be, of course, a security officer or something like that. Maybe we should even put that in there too. While either or both scenarios. Because there's nothing saying that you can't have just kind of a large and attachment. Some of them are there for your OSHA inspection. Some of them are there for to sort of smooth wrinkles and try to get a sweetheart deal, almost for water. Um, okay, here we go. So and we'll spell that out for the as sort of a hint to the story guide and the players. Um, we'll say that the best agents are more interested in shrimp relations, uh, of producing water to export to the crew mining colony. While either or both scenario will largely consist of bureaucratic and diplomatic agents, combat ready security officers are likely to accompany such a detachment into the pirate infested asteroid belt, um, which is accurate, right? You're not going to send a bunch of inspectors out into a place where they could run into some trouble without some backup. At least Aeon wouldn't. I'm sure lots of people, lots of, cost cutting measures and whatnot, people might do that, but Aeon probably wouldn't. So by psi order, let's break it down, citing the motivations for being in the asteroid belt. So we're going to do this in a fancy little table. We're going to break out all of our psi orders in order and see what they might be doing there. So first off, we have the docks, or the Rexes, if you played first edition. So we're going to want this to be a table. So a little bit of behind the curtain. If you back anything really from Onyx Path and Kickstarter, you'll get manuscripts, and those manuscripts will often have tables in them. The tables are not formatted; they're just, which makes them sometimes a little bit hard to read. That's because of the way that we make our tables, which I'm about to show you. Um, dropping trade secrets. Basically, if you want to make a table in InDesign, you separate your columns by tabs and your rows by hard enters. So we got the psi order and the motivation. And then we've got our Excluiapian, our Rexes. That's why I call them Rexes. Order. They're going to be there. What would motivate the doctors to make a trip out that way? Perhaps we'll say to deliver and train. Okay, to deliver new medical equipment. and train on-site medical personnel in its use. And one thing that we want to make sure that we communicate clearly is that you can have multiple of these motivations working at the same time, right? Aon might be sending a couple of agents to do a tech inspection, while the Rexes are sending a couple to deliver new medical equipment, train the on-site medical personnel in its use. While the Legion is there to, do a risk assessment, tactical risk assessment. In fact, I'm gonna put that in there right now. So yeah, right. You mentioned, Chandra, quarterly medical checkups. Yeah, that's a possibility. One thing that we have accounted for so far in the adventure is that there are on-site medical personnel. So I think the Rex's being there for training, those people make sense. But performing physicals would be just as just as reasonable. Um, it's possible that ICE would hire out the Rexes to do so, though. Again, they have their own sort of freelance Vitakinetics on staff. Um, so those are things. That's something we can kind of come back and play around with. I did note it down in case we want to revisit that. But because we also may, one of the things that I like to do when I'm putting together a scenario like this, once we get to the point where it's kind of together, um, aside from just like actually raw playtesting the thing, I like to kind of go read through, kind of try to piece together like how did the situation get to where the situation is. What, especially when you're dealing with an adventure where the party shows up to a situation that's already messed up and there's nothing they can do about it already being messed up. Their job is to deal with the hows and the whys and figure out what caused it, right? So in order to do that, I want to make sure that the circumstances leading up to that make internal sense. And if I find that in planning that out for whatever reason, the presence of Vitakinetic doctors makes it make less sense, I'll just get rid of that element of the story. Sometimes you have to prune some hedges and kill some of your precious writing babies to get the job done. So yeah, we've got. So let's get back into our breaking down our side orders. I think we have a good selection of possible motivations for the Rexes. The Chitra Banu, we're going to leave for the end. But I would guess we're getting into spoiler territory here, so cover your ears and go la 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 la. The Chitra Banu have associations with other psi orders, particularly with the Norsa. So that might be our onboard here. That might be our way of bringing them on board. Just kind of put as Norsa along with their motivations. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. The the clairsentience. My order's leader told me to, or I don't know, I felt like being there. Which are yes, amazing reasons to do so. Um, Another thing that might be cool for them. So before I forget the chibs, I'm gonna put uh, as Norsa, and I'm going to make sure I do my proper character, because if I don't do it now, I will forget to go back and do it later. Um, so next up on our list is the ISRA. So I like the idea of like I was told to come. I felt compelled, um, but I don't want to lean on that too hard as a narrative crutch, um, especially because then it starts to me to beg the question of why this particular what's special about this particular thing in a settled space in a cosmos where there are all sorts of threats presenting themselves, where there are all sorts of tragedies kind of occurring. What draws a particular clairsentient to a particular event? If I don't have a really good reason for what that might be, um, and I don't generally feel like because the story demands it is a good reason, I tend to avoid that in my writing. Um, Having said that, though, I don't think it's an invalid motivation for the ISRA at all. I think it's perfectly valid thing to hook to sort of hang their involvement on. But be, um, I would like to sort of uh, step away from that as our primary motivation. Yeah, you make the reason isn't the base, but a person, perhaps one of the other PCs. That could be too. That is possible, and I think maybe we can get into some. Um, let's break that off as uh, rather than being a hook that's directly tied to their order. Let's add that as another general hook, right? Um, like personal connections to uh, I guess to other characters on the base. We'll say at Nemesis Station or on the investigative team. And again, like we don't necessarily need to cover like every single potential motivation because we could just write an entire book on why would you get into a story, and that's not what we're here to do. We want to make sure we have enough meat on the hook for the story guide to run with it. But I do absolutely think there's a value in calling out like personal connections to other characters being an on ramp. So getting to the ISRA, I'm thinking like you know a psionic survey, right? Um, ISRA is constantly exploring in the asteroid belt. Though there is activity within it, there's human settlements within it. there's a lot about the asteroid belt that it still remains kind of a frontier within settled space. So I think that the idea that the ISRA would be there to sort of further expand their knowledge of the asteroid belt might be very cool. Uh, Also possible because ISRA has vested interests throughout settled space, as most of the Cyrus do. Maybe they're there to negotiate. Nice, but thinking on that again, it seems kind of like a common motivation, and B, a motivation that's already covered through Aeon. So, one thing that we want to do if we're gonna take up word count talking about a thing, we either want to make sure that it is utterly distinct, or like we're doing with the chibs here, to make it kind of to avoid spoilers and to convey the idea as succinctly as possible. We just say as this other. We connect it directly to another person's motivation. If it's going to be a repeat, we hang a lantern on that and say this is a repeat. Otherwise, we want it to be distinct and unique, if that makes sense. Because we want the words to have impact. We want it to matter. We don't want a reader to ever look at it and go, "I didn't need to read that bit. That was kind of a waste of my time and energy." So that's kind of my thinking on breaking down motivations and detailing them. So we got the legions are there for tactical risk assessment of the station. Unbeknownst to them, they're walking into a shit show. The ministry. What does bring the ministry there? I like the idea of the ministry acting in obviously in the best interests of China, but again, that's kind of obvious, and B, how do we bridge that gap? Um, how do we tie that together? And I'm just checking to see a couple things about some ministry interests. Hmm. How about let's see, psychology therapy for the people who have been stationed in the asteroid belt for months on end? I like that a lot, actually. So, well, two things, right? So let's go with um, we have psych evaluations. Now, we have specifically not um, mentioned any sort of telepaths previously. So it could be psych evaluations at the behest of ICE. determine the long-term effects of asteroid mining. And I think another potential motivation, and it could be both, because the ministry is nothing if not, layered. Um, we could also have negotiation or persuasion to increase water supply to cancel Lugier. And I think that serves a kind of double purpose too, because then it shows the ministry is sort of, yes, they're working this relationship in a broad sense. They may very well be getting paid even by ICE to come in and do this research study, look at the effects that long-term asteroid mining lifestyle has on people. But they're also then sort of not twisting, but sneaking in the additional purpose of trying to get folks off of the get folks in Kansalugi to be a little bit more friendly to China. It's Kansalugi is a colony world that is sort of in a deep battleground state with aberrants against the colonists. And it was initially a Chinese colony that has now shifted a bit, and so China is trying to kind of get back in their good graces. And I think that might make for a cool political move. Having a ministry plant that the ministry wants to make sure they're still loyal. I like that possibility. I don't. I don't think my concern with including that is twofold. One, I don't want to overload us with too many antagonists, quote unquote, and it could easily be construed as an antagonist if you have someone sort of uh, indulging in that sort of industrial espionage. Though, um, I mean, I suppose it probably wouldn't like beggar belief. It's definitely possible. You can have more than one thing going on. But the other, um, I guess, concern that I have about that is if we hang meat on that hook and nobody is playing ministry, um, do we just say then that that's a non-issue, or do we work that into the narrative in a way that's going to matter whether or not there's a ministry member there? Um, you know, one of the things that we want to make sure that we avoid, I think, is the Raiders of the Lost Ark problem, which is that if Indiana Jones didn't exist, the movie would have still happened the way it happened. Like it has zero impact on the story. We want to make sure we avoid that while we're setting up player motivations. Um, so let me bake that in my noodle. It doesn't have to go anywhere. They could have died in an accident just last week. I mean, sure, but if they died in an accident just last week, why would the ministry be sending people? Um, you know, although actually, that's not a bad idea. Maybe rather than just studying the long-term effects of asteroid mining, um, maybe we add in a recent accident gave ICE cause for concern, and they've requested the ministry evaluate the worker responsible for potential mental health concerns. So maybe there was an accident. ICE reached out to say, hey, we're not quite sure maybe what caused this. Maybe you could send somebody out, send us a telepath to look into this and see what happened. We want to make the accident something that's sufficient enough to warrant that level of scrutiny, but not sufficient enough to like destroy the station or cast so much suspicion that it makes it untenable for the story to take place. That actually may not be a bad hook to explain kind of the why did these aberrant cultists come out of the woodwork, right? So maybe instead of like they've just had enough, or they strapped on a nearby asteroid, maybe the accident, let's throw that in. I'm going to give that a header 3 so I don't miss it. Worker X, we'll say accidentally melted a frost layer over a large cavern, large crevice. Right? This cost ice. Why are you sitting on my headphone cord, dude? Oh my goodness. This cost ice not only significant losses in recoverable water. Oh, okay. So this cost ice significant losses in recoverable water, and agitated the aberrant colony, inspiring them to strike. Right? So this way we have a event. Okay. Now that accident event could actually call back into some of our previous assumptions, right? So the AN team are there for tech inspection due to the recent mining accident. Right? So now we have an event that kicks things off that can feed into several of these motivations, or several of these PC motivations for visiting the location, and also handily explains why all of a sudden these aberrants are attacking, right? Yeah, so like we can add um I don't think that that will mess with the Rex's motivation too much. Um it's possible that some of the medical equipment they're being delivered is like in response to the accident, but it's also possible that they just coincide. That's not a big deal. There's on-site medical personnel, and I don't think we want the accident to be severe enough to like require, like a long-term or like a rapid threat response or anything like that. Um, I have noticed, Chandra, and I appreciate the spitballing. It does help immensely. That's why we're here. So the ISRA might be there to conduct a sonic survey of the asteroid belt, uh, possibly investigate cause of the accident, right? Because ISRA are very good investigators. They've got post cognition and whatnot. So that might be another reason the ISRA would be there. Legion's there to perform tactical risk assessment of the station, determine if any security risks are present on Nemesis. We've got Ministry broken down with psych evals. Um, and I don't think they're going to go specifically for the negotiations regarding Cancel Lugi, but perhaps um, we'll say Ministry agents are encouraged to lay the groundwork for negotiation and persuasion to increase water supply to Cancel Lugi. So while they're not, while the Ministry is not there specifically in the negotiation sort of um, capacity, they're definitely interested in it. They're definitely interested in laying that groundwork and getting that established, probably for other diplomats to actually take care of. So it's kind of a nice bonus. So let's go with my absolute favorite psi order. What brings the Norsa there? Um, we could say I mean, the Norse definitely have an interest in shoring up um, their presence throughout settled space. They do have a sort of penchant for um, law enforcement, I guess, or justice enforcement, as it were. Um, they definitely see themselves and like to be perceived as sort of romantic heroes. I think I think maybe Norsa will be going there to Well, why don't let's piggyback it kind of off of a uh, another idea that we've talked about before, but to a slightly different angle. Um, so you'd say Norse are there to try to persuade. Actually, let's tie it back to the accident. So Norse are there because the uh, mining equipment that caused the accident, or involved in the accident, we should say, was designed by Biosystems. Yeah, so the mining equipment involved in the accident was designed by Biosystems. The Norse want to know what went wrong and why. I think that's a good. Uh, it's good motivation. That also, I think, ties into. I'm gonna get into some petty shit right here. Orgatech, on the other hand, uh, I think under the guise of, we'll say, not necessarily neighborly concern, but I guess, yeah, I guess under the guise of community-minded involvement, Orgatech offers resources to investigate the accident. Those resources are also instructed to act as a sales team, as an initial sales team, attempting to persuade ICE, we'll say station management, to switch to more Orgotech products. So this is another example of like how when you're dealing with the PSI orders, like the Trinity Continuum is often designed from a perspective where like uh, maybe it's not the default assumption, but a common assumption would be that everybody is either in the same allegiance or in closely related allegiances, right? It's not always the case, and there's certainly nothing dictating that has to be the case. But I'm a fan of setting up sort of, or even not even setting up, but exploiting pain points between those allegiances to make for a better drama for your story, right? So the idea that Norse has already, prior to the start of our adventure, Norsa has somewhat one-upped Orgatech by selling them the mining equipment selling ICE the mining equipment they're using. And so Orgatech now has, a little motivation to sort of not necessarily double cross, but sort of stick it to Biosystems, to Norsa by proxy, No pun intended. By showing up and not only fixing the problem, but saying, "Oh, well, we've got this mining equipment over here that does X, Y, and Z better." So I think that's kind of a cool little twist to throw in there, and a nice little way to set up tension between player characters, provided that you have, a Norsa and an Oriatech in your group, and they both want to buy in on those motivations. Um, in fact, we should probably mention too. Uh, these are suggested motivations. You don't necessarily have to go with these, right? So, like, let's say you are playing a character where you want, you know, you're playing a Rex and you want to have some sort of a connection to somebody that's at the base and you're there just to visit. You just want to go visit family, whatever. That's all fine. These motivations are included to offer expanded options, to stoke creativity, to get people, uh, give people an easy jumping on point. They should never kind of supersede what a player's motivations might want to be, if that makes sense. If a character wants to on ramp onto the story through a different method, that's fine as long as all parties at the table are cool with it. Um, so yeah, just waxing a little poetically about that, I suppose. So then let's get into the Opeo Wamacho. What do the Opeo want here? Now this could be as simple as pickup or delivery. Of mined resources for distribution to the extrasolar colonies. Which also, not necessarily like the Apeo might even be doing intrasolar intra solar delivery, right? They may be picking up stuff at Nemesis Station to run to Mars. That's possible. I would assume that they're probably going to be more interested. The ICE will probably use their own resources to do deliveries within the solar system, just for cost-effective reasons. But I would say picking up or dropping off something from the extrasolar colonies, and yes, absolutely, Chandra, the teleporters are driving the bus. That's the other easy motivation is they're providing transportation for the arriving group. They're just the pilot. Could be. I mean, and to that end too, theoretically, I suppose you could go ISRA with that as well, though I don't think you're going to be doing a whole lot of jumping. I mean, you can jump in the solar system, just probably not the best idea. So I think we've got our basic breakdown here, right? So the whole reason I typed it up that way was so that I can show you nice and easy. We're going to go here. We're going to switch this to S, which is the text style that we like to use in our tables. And we have a nice little convert text to table option here in InDesign that does that work for us. So now we can go through and clean it up a little bit. So for example, when I get rid of, we have an extra cell, we're going to get rid of that. we're going to make our cells work a little bit different. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut this table out entirely. We're going to put it in its own little text window. We have it in an independent text window. I can set it up to so the basically the word wrap goes around the outside. We probably don't want it to go that far, but we're just working on it, getting it set up right now. So I think we're going to go all the way over, full width of the page. That gives us some room to sort of play. All right, so now we're at the full width of the page. We can extend the frame down to the sides, and then we can bring this down here. So we have their motivations in this nice handy to read table. We're going to change the cell style and the table style. Let's set these to style B. We're going to fill in I just want to make a couple of cosmetic adjustments here to make sure it all looks pretty. There we go. All right. And then lastly, we want to go over into our table properties here. And we want to make sure that in our strokes and fills, we're going to go every other line and add a little bit of shading to it. So that's going to go bear with me as I'm digging around for my alternating fills. There we go. First, well, every other row. First row is going to be none. Second row is going to be our very light cyan 15, magenta 100, yellow 100, black 45 or 40. And that should give us a look that is pretty well in order with the tables that you find in your Trinity books. Though I think maybe we're a little darker on those fills. No, maybe not. That might just be the template being programmed a little bit darker on the fills as well. I see the problem here. And again, sometimes some of this stuff, even when you've been using it for a long time, like I've been using InDesign for 20 years, and sometimes you have to kind of play with it a little bit. and see what comes out. So I skip the first row. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. Sorry, that was probably only interesting to like me, but I want to make sure it looks good. All right, so now we have a nice, lovely table here that breaks down kind of our psi order motivations. We can pull that bullet point off. Well, let's leave that bullet point there for now because we do want to go back and actually flesh that out in prose format, like talk about it, the way you would expect it to be in a book, as opposed to just being a bullet point. So let's flesh out our passing through and something unrelated goes wrong bullet point, right? There are a lot of things that can go wrong in space. It's it's being locked in a tin death trap surrounded by infinite blackness on all dimensions, where death is waiting on every corner. So plenty of things that could go bad. I think it might be cool to say, establish the makeup of the party. And their reason for traveling through the asteroid belt. I think what do we want to call? So we want to figure out who is in that ship and why. Right? What are they going through the asteroid belt for? Are they maybe going? Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you gathered that. Yeah, so that's why your manuscript tables look the way that they do. Um, it's based on the tab in the hard enters. So yeah, establishing the makeup of the party, figure out why they're going there. Maybe they're going from Mars to visit someone, uh, station orbiting Neptune. Whatever their reason, there's plenty of things. Maybe they're just getting from one asteroid to another. There's plenty of things that could cause a group to be traveling through the asteroid belt. Maybe they're getting ready to go extrasolar, but they want to get out past the densely settled part of Earth space before they do. Lots of things. Though, if you're in a Leviathan, you're going to be pretty well armed to deal with this little aberrant, problem out here. You have a lot of backup, so just be advised, story guides, if you run this as though like there's a Leviathan on its way out of the solar system and it notices this problem, they'll be able to make relatively short work of the enemies. Okay, so mishaps. So let's make some mishaps, right? I love mishaps. And because I love me some tables, and we'll probably wind up moving this table because otherwise we'll end up with tables in our tables. Um, but let's do pass through the area near Nemesis Station. Something goes horribly wrong. Let's do because we use D10s, right? That's the die we use. Let's do 10 things that can go terribly wrong in space. So D10 mishap. First thing that can go wrong in space is a hull breach, right? Seems pretty obvious, but it's a bad thing. It's something you don't want. Lore, my goodness. You are just a problem today, aren't you, buddy? Sorry, my cat doesn't know how to behave himself. Hull breach is bad. We do not like hull breach. It sucks you out into space. As Crow T Robot once said, breach hull, all die, even at it underlined. Hey, what's going on, Leco? Good to see you here. Let's go must land at Nemesis Station for repairs. All right, so yeah, hull breach. That can go terribly wrong. Let's go engine failure. The ship has just enough power to make it to Nemesis Station. For repairs. Navigational systems offline. I love it. Then we'll say either through clairsentience or visual survey, the ship, the crew determines Nemesis Station is the best option for landing and repairs. I can hold my breath a long time. Yes, absolutely. Life support failure. We love it. We love to see it. Nemesis Station is the only place I appreciate your helping, Lego. Thank you for being here. The ship can reach before air runs out. The party freezes or some other. Let me fix that because that looks ugly. Sorry. There we go. And let's go a little bit. So we don't want all of these to be like total calamity, right? want it to be bad enough to stop them, but not so bad that they can't reasonably like leave later. We want them to not be able to escape during the action, but we don't want it to like totally screw them up. So we got hull breach. We got. I mean, explosion is always a possibility, but we got hull breach, engine failure, navigational systems offline, life support failure, uh, gravity offline. How does that sound? Right, like that would be anywhere from like straight up debilitating to mildly annoying, depending on how people were trained. But I think it would be enough to um, get them to park. So let's go 5 gravity offline. It is awkward if you got a potty, and it's awkward if you have people who are not trained in low grav environments. That is something you absolutely can be in and trained in low grav environments, but you can also absolutely not be. Um, so uh, could be inconvenient or debilitating depending on the crew. Um, best land to fix it. Uh, yeah, exactly. Coasting through space, fixing shit is hard. Completely. How about this? So far, we've kind of assumed that they're passing, going outward or going navigating through the asteroid belt. So let's say maybe collision, right? Uh, asteroid material has hit the ship, causing havoc with ship systems and threatening hull integrity. So something hits the ship, doesn't breach the hull, right? But it does um, cause enough concern that they decided to pull over. Communication blackout would be cool. Would also prevent them from getting alarmed when they're unable to raise Nemesis Station before they land. So that could be kind of neat. So yeah, communication systems down. Um, now let's look at how this is different than say your Star Wars, Star Trek sci-fi, right? Because Anne doesn't use like subspace communication or any sort of hand wavium for the most part. There are OpNet relays throughout settled space, so it probably would be um, it would probably need to be like some sort of like a mechanical or electrical failure in the actual ship itself that causes that communications failure. Um, so yeah, I don't think we need to necessarily detail it too much. We'll just say communications failure because we don't have to get into like what specifically causes it. One thing we could do though, once we get all these down, is we could maybe go through and put like a difficulty milestones to repair, right? So that way, if they decide they're going to split up or something, you can have the people who are doing the technical side of the party, could still be doing their activity to repair while everybody else is sort of looking around. Yeah, radiation exposure could be a problem. I'm trying to think what would cause that far away from the sun. Um, that wouldn't be sus as hell, right? Because like we don't want them to decide that they're not a safe place. Unless they are like, this is the only place we can sit down, which is also possible. I don't want to tip the hand at that point that there are aberrants involved. Otherwise, obviously, like a blast from an aberrant would do it. Perhaps a lot of the engines. I'm trying to check and see if they use hyperfusion. Yeah. Yeah, hyperfusion is pretty stable. Like it requires maintenance, but it's uh, it's a proven technology that's been in existence for 200 years by this point. Teleporter got drunk, and it's funny. Um, yeah, cosmic rays, I suppose. Um, yeah, to hell with it. We'll say. Well, again, we want it to be something that we can assign milestones to repairing, unless one thing we could do to possibly um, telegraph that it's aberrant activity without actually showing those cards would be kind of an unexplained radiation storm. Um, so radiation levels spike. Unable to determine the cause. Cause or source. Party lands at Nemesis Station. Hoping to wait out the storm. And that unexplained radiation storm could be caused by the aberrants, right? Um, yeah, radiation is pretty gnarly, but you know we want to illustrate this as like an inciting activity to bring the adventurers into our clutches. It's not so much something that's actually designed to tax their resources going in so much as sort of our deuce in the machina, as it were. One thing I did want to uh, yeah, this is literally opening the. We don't want the ship to explode. Scene one. I mean, if we want a really, really, really short session, that's one way to do it, I suppose. Um, So low on supplies, right? Like, let's say that this is a return trip. Um, let's say they're coming back from wherever they were and they're passing back towards uh, Earth space, right? They've been out, and due to extended uh, time in space or difficulties that they ran into, their ship is low on supplies and will not make it to Earth, or will not make it to Mars, even without immediate assistance. So, um, and then of course my favorite, the 10th is going to be. It's a shame they brought a cannibal on board. I love it. Uh, no, I think our 10th option is going to be pirate attack, right? There are pirates out there. Now, if you'll note, I have space pirates listed as one of our potential on ramps, because that's going to be very different. Because in that potential on ramp, I'm envisioning them as the players are space pirates, whereas in this particular thing, the players are attacked by space pirates and must land to enact repairs. We'll say they've stolen cargo and possibly wounded some personnel. Rather than dictating a sadistic, you know, practice of making the party start off injured, we can just mildly suggest it and let the story guide do with it what they will. Um, you have ice employees and space pirates, definitely not ice pirates. I mean, it kind of could be ice pirates, really. Um, there's no reason that this adventure could not devolve into ice pirates. Uh, what a fine film! I need to go back and rewatch that. It's been ages. All right, so now that we've got those broken out, we're going to once again do a little bit of mystical magic and turn it into a table. Now it's going to look all sorts of funny because it's now stretched over like 3 pages. Um, but don't worry, I'll get it fixed. Yeah, well, I'm working on this though. Yeah, basic idea here is, we make something that is going to be um, challenging enough that it's going to mess up the player's day. Well, mess up the character's day. We don't want to mess up the player's day. That's not very nice. Um, but not insurmountable, right? Nothing in here is going to be insurmountable. And you know what we should do? Probably aside from that is let's add a whole another column here. And put that on the wrong side, sorry. So I go for thinking out loud. Let's add a whole other column here and we'll add system effects. So that way we can touch base on, all right, well, what's this going to cost us to fix, right? What additional time bomb are we putting in the character's lap to get get things fixed. Thank you so much, Leco, for the congratulations on that. I'm not talking about it too much on this channel because that feels like it would be somehow inappropriate. But I appreciate your congratulations, and if you're interested in learning more, you can go follow me on social media because I will be posting about it aplenty for the next at least 3 hours. So, uh, getting back into this, we want to figure out our system effects. We have these various things that can go wrong, but what are the complications? What are the resolutions? Maybe rather than putting system effects, I should put resolution, right? Because at the end of the day, once the players complete the story as written, they're still going to need to resolve this problem to get off of the station in the event that they actually, in the event that that is how they come to the adventure. Does that make sense, right? Um, so we set that up as, oh, hey. As a resolution, we can break down the resolution conditions, figure out what they need in order to complete and repairs and such. And honestly, I think that's probably going to be it for us for today. So we will pick up a week from today, diving in on sorting out what those resolution conditions are going to be, right? Figuring out what the party has to do in order to get the ship back on the road. So I will leave you with that. Before we run off, if anyone has any final questions, comments, complaints, or concerns, you may feel free to pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I greatly appreciate you all being here. It's always a pleasure to get to come on here and brainstorm. I love the ideas. I love the exchange. I love the discussion. And I hope that you're learning a thing or two about creating community content. Once again, our community content program that we're featuring here is the Storypath Nexus. I'm going to share the guidelines here in the chat, as well as just a sort of a link to the overall Storypath Nexus page. This also contains kind of all of the things that are available currently on the Nexus. So throw that in chat for you. I want to remind you all that Titans Rising and Titanomachy are currently raising funding on Kickstarter. Let's see where we're at as of right now. Looks like, yeah, just over 500 from unlocking our next stretch goal. So if you've not yet done so, head over there, check that out. It's an opportunity to get your hands on two traditionally printed books, one of which has only previously been released in PDF and print on demand, and the other is a brand new book that covers playing Titanic Scions. So lots of fun to be had there. Definitely go check it out. If you've not yet done so, I would also implore you to please consider backing or consider subscribing to this channel and liking it so you know, or following, I should say, so you know when we go live. And yeah, spread the word, check stuff out. Go over on the Nexus. There's a ton of cool stuff. Even if you don't want to create your own community content, there's a whole bunch of stuff there that's really good and really wonderful to add to your campaign. And just another, I guess, final parting thought that I'd like to leave regarding community content, especially with Trinity Continuum, but with all of our books, really. We discuss, there are some people who maybe are reluctant to allow community content items at their table. And I would encourage you to give them a look, make a judgment based on each individual product. The idea of something being an official release, while yes, official releases from Onyx Path have a certain standard of quality control. There are processes that are followed to make sure everything looks and works good. Um, that doesn't necessarily mean that the community content stuff's not just as good. And in terms of things being official or unofficial, if that's your only sort of measuring stick for what you're going to allow at the table, I would encourage you to consider allowing community content. The Trinity Continuum has baked into its core the concept that your table is as canonical as my table is as canonical as what's written in the books. It's all canon. Um, it's one of the joys of being in a continuum is you can decide some things exist in your game one time and then maybe they don't exist another time. Um, so definitely check that stuff out. There's a lot of cool material out there, a lot of talented writers working on it, and you'll see some of them showing up in official projects or some of the people who freelance on official work, such as myself, contributing a lot to the community content because we don't have the space maybe in official books to get what we want out there, or you know the Onyx Path doesn't have the time or budget to kick out the amount of material some of us might put out if left to our own devices. So yeah, definitely check out the Nexus. Tell all your friends to do the same, and until then, well, I mean, thank you, Chandra. I appreciate the kindness. But yeah, word count is awful, but it helps us keep things in order. On that bright, shiny note, I'm going to call it a day. I will be. I would encourage you to follow me over on my social media. I'm at Travis Legge pretty much everywhere. I will be on Twitter for at least another 3 hours because I have a thing I'm wrapping up. If you want to go over to my Twitter and check it out, you can figure out what that thing is. Um, After that, we'll see. I might be shuttering my Twitter for a while for a number of reasons, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm also on Blue Sky now, so you can follow me over there. And until then, I would encourage you to take care of yourselves and each other. Wash your hands, wear masks, get your updated booster as soon as you can. And we will see you again real soon. I'll be back this time next week for this show. Till then, take care.